Howdy, folks! Happy happy Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, it's I normally have my physical therapy on Wednesday, and today I had a special. The schedule got remixed, so that's why. Sorry. So happy Tuesday. It is sunny and well, I guess 50 degrees is considered warm after we've been 10 degrees, 12 degrees the last few months. So that's a nice thing. And as some people in the chat are mentioning here, I'll just mention it. Yes, I did get mentioned on 31 Thoughts yesterday by Jeff Merrick, not relating to hockey, relating to history, because he's been into World War I over the and I, being somebody who almost has a master's in history, I was pointing him to different books to read on the subject, and he mentioned my name and on the show. So that was.
You should have mentioned how you failed to talk about the Boston Massacre when I gave you the opportunity.
Jesus Christ. Okay, all right. Start us off with the pre-show, Russ.
So let's talk about clickbait and the New York Times. They put up this article that I saw this morning that says, "Hey, sorry, New York, California has the best bagels." And of course, I didn't click on the article because let's get down to what makes a good bagel. Okay. It may be possible that California bagels are better than they were 10 years ago. I'll grant you that. Mm-hmm. If you're toasting your bagel, you're doing it wrong. Basically, if you're toasting it, that is an indictment on the bagel. Yes. Because if you get a bagel right, you just eat it the way they give it to you at the store. You get your schmear and you're good. Right. That is the mark of a good bagel. Whether it comes out warm or it's just like been out for a little while, that's the mark of a good bagel. Once you start toasting it, once you start doing other things to it,
then it's
no longer a good bagel. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. See, that's the thing. And I actually don't want a bagel that is, because they make them, there's a place here that it makes New York style bagels. The guy was from, I think, Brooklyn, moved to Buffalo, and he's got a couple stores here. And I don't like it when they come right out of the, the water bath or whatever, how they make them. Because I don't like cream cheese melted. I like, I
get that.
Yeah, I want the bagel room temperature, and I want the schmear, and I just want the bagel. I don't want it toasted. I don't want it warm. I just want the bagel and the cream cheese, and boom. If it's butter,
that's how it should be. If it's good, if it's going to stand on its own. That's why I like a company like Lender's with the frozen bagels. If you're getting a bagel from your bagel shop and you don't love it, you might as well just get that, because you're going to throw everything in the toaster anyhow.
Right.
And why pay big money for it? Now, here in Jersey, I could find decent bagels. There is one place that's decent. In Philly, there's one really good place. So once in a while, I was able to go there and get some stuff pre-pandemic. So Philly does have some decent. Look, I've tried the Montreal. It's very good. It's not better than the New York, so every Canadian's wrong about that.
Yeah, I've never had the California bagel. I've only seen the pictures that were posted. I'm like, okay, I'm not really.
Yeah,
if you have to
definitely tell you what you're dealing with bagel-wise, and to be honest, look, here's what you want. Like, as an example, I like salt bagels, right? Perfect salt bagel is it's a little chewy. It doesn't have too much salt, because there are some places that just put like a half gallon of salt on it. And
Perla hates salt.
I know. And so, there is that too, right? There's a fine line, there's a delicate balance. But if it's right, the bottom's done a little bit, you've got the right amount of salt and the right amount of chewiness.
Yeah, I preferred everything bagel, cream cheese. Now, it doesn't have to be plain cream cheese. I'll get a little, saucy and get like the scallion cream cheese or the garlic cream cheese or whatever, that's fine. If they don't have everything, then I'll go with, let's see, probably rye bagel or pumpernickel or marble.
Any of those are fine.
They're fine.
There's a lot of different ones. Like, I know a friend who gets an everything bagel and he gets a plain bagel, puts the everything stuff on it, but said if he got an everything bagel, he still would put the everything powder on it. And I'm like, why?
Yeah, that's overkill.
It's overkill. If it's a good everything bagel, it's going to cover everything.
Okay, here's where I depart from some people. I love salmon. I love his salmon fillet. I'll cook it. I'll do. I don't like lox and cream cheese on a bagel.
Okay, I guess it's an acquired taste for sure. There's different types too. So it all depends. There's like a belly lox that's like basically salty.
Yeah.
There's Nova, which is the popular one, which you see sometimes even being carved by hand, and that one's much more like less salty.
It's shaved. It's like
It's shaved, yeah, and it's thin, and so like it pretty much flakes off in your mouth. But you also could get like a Scotch salmon, like there are some different types. But I get it; it's not for everybody.
Yeah, the place in Buffalo is called Bagel J's. They should let me. They should probably let me or pay me for advertising, but they're really good on Delaware Avenue. All right, let's start the show. Eck will be joining us in a minute. We have a few things to discuss right off the bat here. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. I'm
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, let's start with this. Mike Babcock. Now, he came out, and I just saw this a few minutes ago, so it's sort of fresh in my mind, and I listened to the little audio clip. Andy Strickland, friend of the show, friend of Hockey Buzz, posted on the Cam and Strick podcast. I think it's Cam Jansen who's the Cam. So Babcock was on there, and if you listen to the audio clip that I just retweeted, you will hear Babcock say, I quote, "Love is not blowing smoke up people's butts." But if you listen to the whole quote, he talks about basically saying that he's sort of some sort of chameleon, that like every year he sort of rethinks his, mode of operations and, adjusts to whatever circumstance. I have never heard a load of bullshit bigger in my life, because Mike Babcock in his 4 years in Toronto did not adjust worth a good guy.
He was the same guy. He's always the same guy. It's many times too.
Yeah, it's unbelievable how brazenly he's lying to try to get a job back in the NHL. Because I'm telling you right now, I was in the locker room as a member of the media. I was at pre-game morning skates. I was at post-game media availabilities. He's the same guy.
Yeah,
the same guy from the beginning to the end.
He was the same guy in Anaheim. He was the same guy in Detroit. Nothing has changed with Mike Babcock. Nothing will. And that quote is a quote you expect to hear from Mike Babcock.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's nothing wrong with the quote. The problem is when you get there and you have that kind of, all right, prove it to me, or you're basically never going to play for me. Like, I don't know, like plenty of players that he has put in the doghouse forever. Mm-hmm. That doesn't go well anymore. It doesn't.
I mean, see, this is the thing. Mike Babcock, and we saw this in some instances with star players, in other instances with players who were borderline NHLers. Frankie Corrado is the biggest example. Yeah. And, Frankie Corrado is never going to be a star in the NHL, but simply because Lou Lamoriello claimed him off of waivers without the say-so of Mike Babcock said this guy's never going to play. And Lamoriello...
He had a few others that he wasn't giving much playing time to and didn't, wasn't very fair to. And if he liked somebody, he would play him regardless, like Gauthier. Like he had obvious blind spots. And I don't know, the thing that I took most about the last go-round of Mike Babcock is if you're a young player with him and you don't come in as a complete player, how much are you going to play for him unless you're Mitch Marner, unless you have that much ability?
And even with the star players, I mean, he refused in the 4 years that he was there. I think the grand total of games that Marner and Matthews played together was 15. I mean, there was a stretch for like a couple weeks where they played together, and then he went back to Nylander with Matthews and Marner with Tavares, and he essentially says, well, I know what's best for my team, and those guys playing separately is best for the team. And you see right now the combination of Marner and Matthews is the most dynamic combo in the league next to McDavid and Draisaitl, and McDavid and Draisaitl aren't even playing together anymore unless they get into a slump and then they have to play them. So I mean, so it's the job of the coach to manipulate the roster to make the decisions, but I just think, the bad taste that was left in the mouths of people after Babcock was fired by the Leafs, and we heard about what kind of games he was playing, especially with Marner, and now he's trying to shine up his act to.
Here's a good example. Okay, let's give an example. So let's say Mike Babcock goes to, I don't know, let's say he goes to the Sabres, right? Let's say the Sabres get the first pick. Let's say it's Owen Power. Of course, Sabres management is going to want Owen Power to play, and I think he could play in the NHL. But where's he going to put Owen Power? How many minutes is he going to give him? What's he going to do with him? And if Owen Power has a couple of bad games, is he just instantly going to be on the third pair, never see power play, and just have to do it the Babcock way? That's probably what happens.
And there's the other thing. Guys like Matthews and Tavares. Now Marner played a lot, but guys like Matthews and Tavares, you're each going to get like 19 minutes a night. You're not, as soon as Keefe took over, he was playing Matthews 25 minutes a night. Why? Because not on every instance, but in games where they were close or games where the Leafs needed to come back. Why? Because Matthews is 23 years old, and because he can play 25 minutes. That's what that's when you give these guys extra ice time, when they're young and when they have the ability to play that. And so, yeah, I mean, we know what Babcock's trying to get back in.
There may be a team that gets desperate enough to take him. I don't know who that'll be or when that'll be.
Right. I mean,
and it has nothing to do with his coaching ability.
No.
It has everything to do with his style.
Yeah, his style is mentality. So,
yep.
Go and listen to it on the Andy Strickland's website.
Yeah, Andy's great. I definitely would listen to it.
Yeah. Now, okay. Switching to the news that has broken over the last 24 hours, Chris Johnston from Sportsnet first reported that there were going to be proposed changes to the NHL draft lottery. Darren Drager reported that it looks like the draft is going to stay in July. That it's not going to be moved forward.
Yes, if they ever tell Russ Cohen wants a guy who really cares about the draft, but all right, it's okay, NHL, whatever.
Gary Bettman and Daly are going to have immediate availability on Thursday. If you put 2 and 2 together, it's probably an announcement tied to that.
Yeah.
But first, with the draft not moving forward, I spoke to somebody yesterday who thinks there's not a chance there's going to be the combine in Buffalo. When normally there is. I think there's still a chance.
Why would they not a chance? Tell me about that.
Well, I maybe it's the fact that I would think that the combine is even more important now than it would be in normal years, because we haven't been able to see these players. The measurables are going to be even more important unless you're a team managed by John Chaika.
Yeah, I think there's something to that.
But
I'm streaming the Met game as I'm watching, and of course,
it's a loss. Don't worry, Russ. It's a loss.
I don't know. Actually, they went 1-2-3 on your Cardinals. Anyhow, no, but when you have a note on the calendar, it just stays on there. It annoyed me. Anyhow, what I would say on this is I like the idea of keeping the draft in July. I like the idea of just saying, hey, there's going to be a draft. Okay, so now we know there's going to be a draft. I also like the idea about this. You can't move up more than 10 spots. I agree with that. There shouldn't be a reward for a team that either just missed the playoffs or even made the first round and got eliminated to be able to move up 10 spots. Like, why? There shouldn't be that reward. Now, the 2 times in 5 years, I'm okay with that, because I think that's the anti-tanking part of it, don't you think?
Yes and no.
I mean, sometimes it's not intentional, but still, if you wanted to tank every year, at least this would prevent you from getting the top pick every year, like in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the reason that they're making changes now is because they saw last year that Detroit was not trying to tank. Detroit just sucked, and they lost. They fell from 1 to 4. So that really is.
Yeah, this way you can't go past 2.
Right. So I don't think it prevents tanking. I think in specific strategic years, if you have a McDavid.
No, it prevents the multi-year tank. It doesn't prevent the 1-year tank.
Yes, it prevents the Edmonton Oilers situation.
Yes.
It prevents 4 number ones overall.
Penguins back in the day.
Yeah, but they were strategic.
It was every other year. Yeah, it wasn't every year.
Right, exactly. And you could do that. I mean, you got to remember that Pittsburgh team, Fleury was a number 1, Malkin was a number 2, Stahl was a number 2 or 3.
Yeah,
Ryan Whitney was a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
And Crosby was number 1. So you had a core group that were top 5 picks.
But the Fleury they traded up for, so that was legit.
Sure, but they traded up like 2 or 3 spots.
Yes.
So
yeah, but again, yeah, you do want to be able to build a team through the draft under reasonable terms. Like, in other words, like, yes, you've gone through a season, your team wasn't very good, so you have the chance of getting better through the draft. Not whereas a team's really good, but this isn't our year, so let's just fall to the bottom so we can get a great pick, and then next year we'll be in the playoffs again. That's the kind of stuff that isn't great for the league.
Yeah, that's the thing that with this. I mean, not only is it like it limits you. I mean, okay, first it's the lottery period. If you have the 15th pick and you move up 10 slots to 5, that's considered a lottery win. So that prevents you from winning the lottery the next that 5 or that another one. You have one more time, but.
Right.
In that 5-year period. So
that's fair. I mean, 10 spots is a lot.
I need you guys to do me a favor because I've been doing nothing but rumors and family stuff for a couple days. Mm-hmm. I have not gotten the update on what you're talking about. So
okay,
fill me in on the story.
I'll read the tweet from Chris Johnston from Sportsnet, who reported it yesterday. The NHL is proposing changes to the draft lottery that would see A, teams limited to no more than 2 lottery wins in a 5-year period. B, teams only allowed to jump 10 spots with a lottery win. So that is 15th could only get up to 5.
Yeah, these are good. Those are good. I mean, I'm okay with those.
So the lowest you could finish is 11 to get the number 1 pick.
Right.
And a reduction in the number of picks decided by lottery from 3 to 2. So that means if Detroit finishes last overall and loses the lottery in both instances, the lowest they draft is 3 instead of 4.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, I like they've adjusted it. They put limits on it. They've put limits on multi-year tanking like Edmonton.
Yeah, which I think is good. I mean, I definitely think that multi-year thing is a great rule.
It prevents the multi-year tank. I think if you do move up 10 spots, that should count as a lottery win because that shouldn't happen every year because you were almost a playoff team, or maybe you got eliminated the last day, or maybe last year you were a playoff team, right?
Right.
So, true. I do think that that's fair.
True. All right. Yeah. I mean, this has been an issue that's been bothering me for a really long time. So,
I
like but at least they're going to have a draft. That's what makes me happy.
And Darren Drager reported this morning that the NHL is not going to move the draft forward to next year, that it'll be, it says, waiting confirmation from the NHL, but sources indicate the NHL draft will remain in its originally scheduled July slot. There were numerous obstacles, including NHLPA-related concerns that seemingly trumps the push of several NHL GMs to move the draft to January or 2022. One of the aspects that they were concerned about is the fact that if you move the draft forward a year, there's a 2-year time slot for players to get drafted to, especially in the CHL, to go back into the draft or be signed. If they moved the draft forward, the NHLPA was like, we're not going to move the window 2 years forward. Basically then the window for those players would be 1 year.
Plus, let's say you moved it to August. August is much tougher for the NHL owners to get tee times in like Augusta and places like that. So that's why July they're willing to say, all right, that's fine, because at least after that we can get on the golf course and do what's important.
Now we were just for our own informational purposes, we were wondering whether the NHL, and maybe there's a conference call with Bettman and Daly on Thursday, we could ask whether the Combine will take place, because the Combine usually takes place about a month before the draft in Buffalo. And you would think in a year where there was little play in the CHL, that it would be even more important to get the measurables and things of that nature for these players. But maybe the COVID concerns would prevent that from happening. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. But we would think that it would appear like right now that things are moving in the right direction, with the COVID stuff, with the acceleration of all the
it all depends on who you believe. Vaccines are being distributed in great numbers, and the numbers are going down, but then we hear people talking about there's going to be a spike as things open up.
Here's what I believe. I believe Fauci, and I believe the CDC. I know people want to get on Fauci because he has to give these messages, and since nobody is 100% right all the time, especially on something like this, yes, he is going to be wrong sometimes, and people have to just deal with that.
And he's going to play it conservatively, which is what you have to do. If you're him, you have to play it conservatively. You cannot go the opposite direction. It makes more sense to be conservative. Eventually, there will be a point at which we're all back to normal, but we're not there yet. We're getting closer, though. We're closer than we were a year ago. So
now I want to slide into rumors here.
Yeah,
and start with the Sabres, because the news broke a couple hours ago about Jack Eichel not playing tonight against the Flyers, and they say it's an upper body injury, and there is some speculation about it being longer term. Mike Harrington was just on Toronto radio and didn't seem to indicate that it was a long-term thing. So I don't know. I'm not sure where that speculation is coming from, but I think
it's coming from Elliot Friedman, but I've also heard other things. Elliot seems to be the one who thinks.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not doubting his sources if he's reporting.
No, but I've heard from other people that I think it's early to go on long term. I think Elliot may have gotten someone.
No, they're saying it's a long term injury, not that he's going on LTIR.
Right. But I think that from what I was told, it's potentially long term, but they don't know yet. So that seems to be where it's at, really, for real.
But this is the problem with this. This went from he's not injured, to he is injured, to now he's not playing.
Right.
And look, I'm sure a lot of fans have flushed this season already, but when they want to watch a hockey game, they do at least want to get some sort of information to know who is going to be in the lineup and when they're going to be in the lineup.
Yeah.
And right now, the Sabres have failed in that message miserably.
Well, and that's on Ralph Kruger, because Ralph Kruger, for all his great communication skills, there's only one way to say it. He's been lying to the media, and I get it when it comes to injuries, when it's a playoff situation, but in the regular season, when you're asked on a Monday, is Jack Eichel playing injured? Oh no, he's not. On Thursday, he hurts a lower body injury. He says in practice or in the morning skate, it actually happened in the previous game. And then we find out after he scratched for that game that, lo and behold, he had an upper body injury in training camp that he's been playing with. Be honest.
Right.
Like he's not, that colors the opinion of Jack Eichel all year, because Jack Eichel has been not playing like Jack Eichel. And if he's playing injured, then that's a reason.
All right. But counterpoint on that, Mike, and this in Rush, it's true to be the case. People don't like to tell other people your hockey player's hurt. Like if you sit there and you say he's got a bad shoulder, then every time he goes out there, people are going to be looking at that shoulder.
We didn't say specifically. Ask specifically.
Yeah, but even upper body, you don't want that, because it's like they say, the word's going to get out there very quickly. Anything like that is like gold in a locker room. It's
that part's true. I think where it becomes counterproductive is the way this went down, where all of a sudden it's like, well, hey, wait. So now you're saying he was hurt all along, but he looked fine to me playing for the last couple of weeks, and now all of a sudden he's not fine. Like that's when the fan says, I don't quite buy this, because none of us noticed anything wrong with Jack Eichel on the ice. Mike, did you notice? You've seen the most of them.
He doesn't look anything like he played last year.
But he didn't look like he was playing laboring or something. That's what I'm saying. Last time I saw him,
skating wise, no, but he's clearly there was. He was not playing the way he played last year. I didn't know what it was, but see, the thing is, my criticism here is not that he hid the injury fact. It's the fact that they released the injury information when it suited them. It was like, okay, we're gonna say he's not injured because we're gonna play a little hanky-panky with the media. But then when he's hurt, oh, by the way, he's been dealing with an upper body. If you can stick with what you're taught, what you were,
I don't know. Does that really matter, Mike? I mean, really,
yes,
why?
I think it affects credibility.
But I think you're protecting. You can easily say you're protecting your player there. You can easily shade that. I mean, it's like you definitely. If I'm Eichel, don't tell people that I'm hurt. Eichel knows he's hurt. The Sabres know he's hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like. I think it was pretty obvious that he wasn't 100%. I mean, he's look at the skill the guy has and look at the numbers he's putting up. I mean, you could sit there and say, is Taylor Hall also not 100%? I don't know, but
okay, all the Eichel stuff sort of slides into the other stuff with Buffalo that Elliott reported on the weekend, where he said that the Sabres are wide open for business.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And I wanted to address this real quickly because the Brent Burns rumor is really pretty hot right now, actually. I've heard it a couple times. And I don't know where Elizabeth got it from. But I'll tell you the funny thing, because I have not heard it out there in the mainstream. Maybe it's out there in the mainstream, but I've heard it behind the scenes a little bit. So I thought it was interesting. I don't know the offer, but there is definitely talk there. And I heard it yesterday. I heard it this morning.
What I think it would cost.
Voracek.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you think it would cost?
No, I don't think they want Voracek. They don't want salary like that. They've got enough salary with Carlson. I think they would want Cam York, Travis Konechny, and a first.
Yeah.
Konechny has the same amount of term left as Burns. Konechny makes $2.5 million less.
So that's a savings on that. They get offense. They get a defenseman they can put in the next year or two when they start to get better, and they get a first for this year.
What about Gostisbehere?
I don't think they want Gostisbehere.
Well, I mean, do you think that
I think Cam York, Konechny, and a first is way too much to give up for Brent Burns?
Do you think
this is Brent Burns?
I know it's Brent Burns, but he hasn't been a very good Brent Burns for a little bit here.
If he leaves that team, the whole world knows what Brent Burns can do on the ice.
How old is Brent Burns now?
I don't even care how old he is.
I think he's 34, but I'll double check.
I do. I mean, it's like look. We all knew what Erik Karlsson could do on the ice too. But
but Erik Karlsson had Achilles.
36.
36. Yeah, that's too much, Russ. You can't give a 36-year-old.
And you're not going to get the defenseman you think you're going to get.
Well, no, but I'm not saying you're going to get the defenseman you're going to get, but you're not going to give. I mean, if you would say maybe Travis Konechny in a first or Cam York in a first, I'm a little bit.
They're not.
If you say I'm going to give all those for a first, no.
The only way it makes sense for San Jose, because remember, San Jose is probably wanting to, they know they're not going anywhere. They know Burns may be still decent now, but he's 36 years old. So probably in a year or two, that contract is another albatross. But they're going to have to take something back, and that's Gostisbehere.
But I don't think they would take him back. If they might take him back in that deal, maybe that is the other part of that deal. Yeah. But either way, I think the Flyers would have to give that up. And honestly, they're only losing one roster player if they want to have a chance to make a run. And if you want Brent Burns this year to make a run, you're going to have to give up things you don't want to give up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
Burns would be your pairing with Provorov. He'd be on your top pair.
Ooh, I think that's a bad combination.
Scoring more points.
They're the same player. You don't want to put them together. Like they're the same kind of player.
Burns is so much better offensively than Provorov. Oh my God, so much better.
All right, he's better offensively than Provorov, but you know what you want Provorov to do is Provorov's at his best when you have somebody who's like a stable defensive defenseman next to him, not. Then you
bring the puck up the ice and not worry about it.
Then you put Myers with him, and then you put Sanheim with Burns.
That's what I would do, something more like that, to be honest.
No, you see, then you're not solving your problem. I still would put Burns with him because, again, I would let Burns be the puck transporter and let Provorov get back to playing defense and not having to worry about the rest. Brent Burns, you don't have to worry about him. You don't. Gostisbehere, you do have to worry. Even though he's fast and can bring the puck up, as you saw, like even last game, he had another gaff. So you do have to worry about that.
Yeah,
no,
nobody's going to be Niskanen that you're going to get on this market. Even Ekholm isn't Niskanen. They're all different versions of that kind of player.
Brent Burns has 4 more years on his contract. The AAV is $8 million.
Yeah.
The last 4 years it goes down 7-5, 6-5, 5-5. So
the cost of winning, if that's what you want to do to win, that's what you're going to have to. I just
don't think the Flyers are are that one piece away to make that kind of.
And that was the point.
I agree with you on that. Actually,
that was the point that I made with Russ yesterday. I was like, okay, if they're gonna have to sell significant assets to get an Ekholm or to get a Savard, do they think they're that player away from? I don't think they're beating Washington. I don't think they're beating Boston. I don't think they're beating the Islanders. So why give up assets?
Maybe they could beat Washington on their best day. The Islanders, I don't think so either, and definitely not Boston.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the playoffs are the playoffs.
If they make the playoffs, I know right now they may not make the playoffs.
Pittsburgh is charging.
Yeah.
I mean, the Flyers will look better after this weekend playing the Sabres, but it won't be an indicator of really where they are as a team. That Capitals game was a good indicator of where they are as a team.
I mean, that was their 6th game in 9 nights, Russ.
Everybody's doing that.
Yeah, but to call that an indicator. I mean, and they had the lead for most of the game. I mean, but I mean, to be honest, it's like to sit there and say it's your 6th game in 9 nights is your indicator. I don't know about that.
I do. I use it as an indicator.
Absolutely. Now going back to Buffalo for a second.
Yeah.
I mean, the Taylor Hall stuff. I mean, people got to realize Taylor Hall's got a no-move clause, so he's going to go where he wants to go. He controls his fate. Now, I think he's going to want to go someplace because Buffalo is an unmitigated disaster.
He's going to want to try to go someplace where he can play in the playoffs.
Right, but the thing is that okay, he's got an $8 million cap hit. That means they can, if they retain 50%, that's a $4 million cap hit. There are not many contending clubs that can even handle the $4 million.
I heard St. Louis mentioned with him yesterday. What is St. Louis? I don't know their cap situation. I just heard them mentioned as a possibility for Hall.
Yeah, well, Bozak is on LTIR. I mean, it would basically be a situation if they retain 50% that they could take on Hall, and then Bozak wouldn't be able to come back until the playoffs. That might work. I mean, Colorado's got cap space. I think the Islanders might have enough cap space. But there are very few teams. Like, I mean, there's been a crazy rumor the last 48 hours about the Leafs being interested in Hall. Okay, tell me how. I mean, the only way that the Leafs are going to be able to add anybody at the deadline is to get a third team involved, which happened last year with the Robin Leonard deal. They were the third team involved,
right.
and they retained salary so Leonard's cap hit could fit with Vegas. But they're going to have to find a third team with cap space, like New Jersey, for example, to take on half to fit the cap hit. So that's tough. Detroit is another team that could do it too.
Yeah. I mean, we're about like almost exactly April 12th. Is the trade deadline?
Little over a month.
Yeah, so pretty much a month out right now.
But there seems to be a school of thought that a lot of the Canadian teams are probably going to make their moves in the next week to 2 weeks because of the 14-day quarantine. And I've been trying to find out, and I've not been successful, whether the Canadian teams have petitioned the Canadian government to get like some sort of special dispensation to reduce it from 14 to a lower amount. And I have not been able to find out whether.
I haven't heard if there's an official petition. I have heard that teams, for some reason, when I talked to somebody in Winnipeg a couple days ago, and they acted as if they were going to get that lowered. Like they feel like I think their feeling is that and I know it's nothing formal has been said, but I think there's a feeling at least among that team, and that's just one team, granted, but it's a guy who's pretty connected with the league, that they were going to get that lowered, whether or not they do or not.
That changes the whole landscape of the deadline, because if those teams only have to wait 7 days, then they can wait closer to April 12th.
And there'll be more deals for sure.
There'll be more deals because right now I don't think I think they said last year was 41 trades on deadline.
A lot actually.
It's probably gonna be half of that. Which is
I think this is. I remember last year. The trade deadline happens right before everything goes down, so there was no feeling like anything was. It was just we just kind of a regular season for the rest of the year,
Yeah.
I think that's that. I think is going to be an issue. I
do want to answer one thing too to the chat room. There are teams that win back-to-back games. If you're going to use back-to-back as an excuse as to why a team lost, you can't do that this year because everybody's playing back-to-back games.
No, and granted, everybody, Russ, I do agree. Listen, everybody. There's no question that everybody is playing like a ton of games, and you can't sit there and use the schedule. But I think that if you're going to see where a team really is at, it shouldn't be the last game of a 6-9 against a good team. Like, I mean, especially if they were doing 3-4, 4-6.
Well, how did they do against Pittsburgh? I mean, they came back and won that one game, but they lost 2 out of 3 there. So how?
Yeah, I mean, they lost the first game. They blew. The second game they came back and they had a great comeback and won. And the third game was a back and back. It was just a game that they lost. It wasn't like it's obvious the difference between Pittsburgh and the Flyers.
But they lost 3 out of 4.
Right, they did. No, they lost 3 out of 4, and then they lose
to me.
There's no question that's not
That's what I'm saying.
That's their first stretch like that all year to sit there and say that that's their measuring point. I mean, they haven't lost 3 out of I don't think 3 out of 6 all year, 3 out of 8 all year before that.
Buffalo. Once they stop playing Buffalo, maybe that'll happen.
Well, they beat everybody but Boston for the beginning of the season. I mean, that
was a thing early on. Now it's not a thing anymore.
Well, no, the Penguins beat them twice, and yeah, you're right. I mean, there's no question about it. I think that's a little bit of picking the right spots, to kind of make your point there. I think Russ, the answer to me is somewhere between what you're saying and what I'm saying. I don't think that you can look at that as their real benchmark game. But this stretch goes back to Tahoe. This stretch is high. So we're talking about like a bunch of games where they didn't have a lot of players, a bunch of games. So
this stretch goes back to the time that Carter Hart started having problems.
But even in this game, I mean, they've had their players for the Penguin series. They've had their players for the Capitals. The Capitals didn't even have Tom Wilson in that game.
Right.
No, they had their players for the Penguins and the Capitals. You're right. And the Penguins, like I said, they were 3 good games. I'm not saying the Flyers are going to kill the Penguins every time like they did in the beginning of the season. I think that the Penguins, you saw Malkin actually show up in those games. That helps a lot. Yep. Malkin actually played.
And that is the risk when you play him, right?
Yeah. So, but there is the big difference between the Flyers and the Penguins to me is obviously in depth. The Flyers are a way deeper team than the Penguins are.
We could say that, but right now,
Penguins' fourth line is not close to the Flyers' fourth line.
But again, it may not matter. I mean, that's the whole thing.
It will matter with this kind of scheduling.
I mean, it might. But I'm not going to just hand it to him. I don't think
let's just answer James's question here about Ristolainen. Okay, the one nobody is untradeable in Buffalo except for maybe Eichel right now and the young guys like Dahlin and Cousins.
Yeah, Dahlin is untradeable.
Ristolainen was having a really great year playing with Jake McCabe, and then he got COVID, and he is a shadow of his former self. He's playing, but he's not playing well. So I don't think teams that are interested in him would trade for him now because he might be that way for the rest of the year. He's got a year left.
I don't think they're going to risk it either.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because the Flyers would have to give up significant assets to get Ristolainen, and that might be an off-season deal. It would make sense because I think the chatter here, Eck, is that the Sabres are going to blow it up.
Well, I think that's got to be pretty obvious. I mean, tonight, they're in Philly. Philly's definitely going to be fit for bear after that last game, after those last couple games, and there's no Eichel, and that to me, like if I'm like a hockey person, that tells me the Flyers are going to have trouble again tonight. It's just like a typical thing that you see, like when everything faces one way for one team, every faces another way for another team.
But it shouldn't be the whole game like that. I could see it starting off that way.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the whole game that way.
It shouldn't be, but we'll see. I mean, this is a tough part of the schedule. They have a lot. It's a tough part of everybody's schedule.
It's a tough part of the schedule when they're playing Buffalo, though. I can't.
Yeah, no. I mean,
no, not.
It could be a trap game because Buffalo sucks so bad right now, and you basically are looking at the situation and saying, okay, we have to win this game, and if you underestimate them, then you could lose. But
okay, I think Jake DeBrusk is something we should touch on too.
I was just and Panarin too.
And Panarin, yeah. Start with DeBrusk. DeBrusk is out of the lineup tonight. There's he's a healthy scratch tonight. He has struggled. This is obviously there's not a fit there for DeBrusk and the Bruins. It's been a really it feels like a forced relationship for a long time now, for whatever reason, which kind of is crazy because it seems like
I never understood.
It doesn't make any sense, but there's something there that obviously it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
DeBrusk is available. I've heard that he could be traded as early as today or tomorrow.
Well,
I don't know if that's going to happen, but I feel like his when I heard that before, I heard he was healthily scratched tonight, so that adds
maybe that means he's going to be traded. But the thing with DeBrusque, if you remember, we were talking about the whole fact that it was a long and drawn out holdout before he finally signed the 2-year deal, and the speculation out of Boston was that they felt that DeBrusque had reached what he was going to be, and they didn't think there was any more there. That he's a 20-goal scorer, and
that's all right though. I mean, he's a 20.
Right, but I think he's a decent player.
What do they want out of this guy?
Well, they're paying him $3 something.
I think 20 goals for under $4 million is fine. I mean, I think to me that's like
they obviously want more, or that for them.
I mean, if you score 30 goals, you're not getting
No, I don't think they want. I tell you what, I think I'm going to read between the lines here, and go with what is usually the problem here, and that's the dollars. They don't necessarily want more offense; they just don't want to pay for it, Mike.
I think that's it.
Oh, sure.
Hold on. They still expect all the Bruins to take a discount, and you know what? Players are tired of doing it.
Right. They're getting a really good year out of Nick Ritchie, and Nick Ritchie's making $1.5 million.
That's my point.
Right.
Nobody's doing that anymore for the Bruins. They're tired of it. They're done with it.
Yeah.
And every time a player asks for a little more, they may give it to him, but then they end up someplace else, like Danton Heinen going to Anaheim.
Right. Eventually, they have to trade. I know. I agree with you.
Yeah. So I mean,
here's a Panarin thing. Okay, we have a question. Let's answer a couple questions because people are asking these questions. Things we're going to talk about anyway. Panarin out indefinitely. Which way will the Rangers go this year? This is definitely something that changes everything. Obviously, he's their best player. He's out, and we don't know how long he's going to be out for. It's really a bizarre situation right now.
Yeah, and they can't say where he is, whether he's in the U.S. or Russia, because it's all very tentative. It could be scary at times. We don't know what's going on with that, but it's a big time family matter. Like he could miss the rest of the season, and it wouldn't shock me at all.
Yeah,
And come on, they're not in the playoff race.
They weren't a playoff team anyhow. Yeah. What they should be doing is playing Lafreniere on the top line the rest of the year, playing all the young players that they can, and let everybody develop. Right. I'm going to just bring us to baseball. There were a couple of years when the Mets had a chance to develop some of the young players, and because they had veterans on the team, Terry Collins kept playing these veterans because he's like, the veterans are here. You know what? I don't care about the veterans. If you want to play Kevin Rooney, he doesn't have to play every game. There are certain times where you can play these young players. Let Gauthier play for the whole year on the third line. Let these guys get their reps. It doesn't do anything for this team in the future by playing these bottom six guys huge minutes and not letting anybody get off the bottom six either.
Play Keandre Miller 19, 20 minutes a night.
And see what you have.
All right, so Mike Doyle asks, guys, what depth forward should the Penguins be targeting? The fourth line is awful, and what would they have to give up? Ryan and Glendening are possibilities.
I think Ryan's a possibility.
Ryan would be a good fit, yeah.
Yeah, because obviously Burke drafted him in Anaheim, and he's a $1 million salary. But as Russ knows, there's very little in the coffers in Pittsburgh.
Right.
They don't want to give up draft picks because that's what
they always give up draft picks, and they got to stop that at some point.
And Russ, who is it? Sam Poulin?
Sam Poulin is their top guy. You don't want to give that up. I mean, they already had to trade Kalen Addison, who's going to be really good. Like they can't really trade on their future. They really should only be trading on what is on the roster.
Right. So
I agree with all that. I like Glendening for them a lot more actually than I like Ryan. The situation for them with Ryan, I'm a big.
Like Ryan better. I'll tell you why. They don't have a problem with faceoffs. Crosby can take faceoffs. They got a lot of guys there that can take faceoffs. Once you take the faceoffs away from Glendening, there's not a lot there. There's a little bit there. Where Ryan is, he still skates well, and if you put him with Crosby or Malkin,
if that's your plan, okay. If your plan is to put him with Crosby or Malkin, then sure. Yeah. But don't bring Ryan in and put him on the third or fourth line.
No, they won't do that.
It's a pointless thing to do. You know what I mean? Because Glendening's your guy. Like this, the question is how to fix the fourth line, right? So to me, fourth line is
but if I'm putting Ryan on the first or the second line, everybody's moving down, and it will improve the fourth line.
I mean, Russ, do you think that they'd be willing to give up a guy like Pierre-Olivier Joseph?
Yeah, I think POJ is a possibility. even someone like Sam Lafferty's been playing well. You offer him and maybe another player in Scranton. They have young goalies there. It depends what a team's looking for.
True. That's really true. I just got a text about something here. 1 second. Sorry.
Flamester wants to know whether the Rangers would go after Goudreau. I'm assuming you mean after the season and not during the season, because I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's the direction they're going to go in. Not because of he's not the kind of player they want. They definitely could use a great winger. I just don't think they're at that point where they want to get him. They're not really a playoff team, although they might be able to make it with him and then have to pay him big money when all of a sudden you're going to have to pay Zibanejad too.
I think they're going after a center if they're going after any.
They have to get a center. They can't get any more wingers.
I think that's true too.
Yeah,
I think that's true too. I'm sorry about that. So that's interesting. So the text.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we could see some. We could see the Flyers do something today. I don't know exactly. I mean, from what I'm being told, at least from this text, I'm trying to think of what I can say. Definitely one of their current defensemen could be on the move. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
Now their current defenseman, that's pretty obvious who that could. You would think it's obvious, but it's not actually that obvious.
I would think it's Gostisbehere, but
you would think it was Gostisbehere, but I'm not quite sure.
Right. No, I'm just guessing. You're not.
Yeah, no, I mean that would be my first thought too, and I texted back, so that would be Ghost. The question was, don't assume that. The response was, don't assume that. So don't assume it's Ghost. So we'll see.
Flamester always also asks about the Leafs starting talks with Anderson. I don't think they're going to start talks with him until after the year. I don't think I think they're keeping their options open based on what Anderson does in the playoffs.
Which is what they should do.
Which is what they should do. Yeah. And then if they fall short again, even if they win a round, if they, the expectation here for the Leafs, right now is, okay, it's not, let's just get out of not just get one round. It's like get out of the North Division and compete for the Stanley Cup. That's what that's what the moves that they've made are aimed for. If they do that, then I think they'll be interested in re-signing Anderson. But Anderson is, there's not many goaltenders on this market, so he might price himself out in Toronto. I think Toronto's more focused on re-signing Zach Hyman than they are on Frederik Anderson.
Here's what I also would say: if it's today, I think it's Travis Konecny. I do.
Yeah.
I think he is the guy getting traded because they can't do anything with Voracek in the way of getting him traded. Not this year, not the way the divisions are, not the way the
They have tried. Believe me, they've tried.
Yeah. But I do think the minute you put Konecny on the market, you may be able to get what you're looking for with other pieces involved. And so I think it's Konecny.
Yeah.
He hasn't had the greatest year either.
I was told it was a defenseman, but we'll see. I mean, it's possible.
It could be a defenseman with him.
If it's a defenseman, I think Sanheim is a guy that people have a lot of interest in, and I think the Flyers have. Yeah, but they're not 100% as into him as you would think they would be.
You're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul here.
That's what they're doing with that.
No, but the thing about Sanheim is, Sanheim is a very much this Russ from watching him play all the time. He's a really weird defenseman. Like at times he can look really good and he can look really bad, and he's all over the map. Like there are times when you're like, oh, that guy's the next top defenseman in their top pairing. And then there's times when you're like, geez, he falls over all the time. Yeah. He has a tough time with his crossover skating backwards.
You're right about that. Here's what I could see though. I could see someone taking like Robert Hagg and Konecny because they can go instantly into a team's lineup for somebody else. Because if the team doesn't want Gostisbehere, as an example, I think the Flyers have resigned themselves to the fact that, hey, if we have to use Ghost the rest of the year on a top pairing, we're just going to do it out of necessity unless they get somebody in trade and then they can move him down a little bit. They would love to move him. But again, even his salary is who wants him beyond this year with that salary?
Right. I don't disagree with that.
It's not a shot at him. It's just he's overpaid for what he can produce now.
I do think, what the text I got from, which is kind of interesting because, it's from somebody within the world of the Flyers world who was watching the show, who actually said that Russ might be Russ is a little more right on you than this as far as the Flyers might have looked at this basically as more of a bellwether than I am. More of what you're saying. They might have seen those 3 losses in 4 games as more significant than I did.
Texter.
Yeah. So I think you might be along the lines there. So the question on Montreal and Hall is definitely something I wanted to touch base on real quick. And I do think that that's one of the teams that goes after Hall. And I do think Taylor Hall has interest in playing for the Montreal Canadiens. I've heard that. I've heard that he would have no problem going there and playing for them. They
have the same problem as Toronto and a few other teams. They don't have the cap space.
Right. They'd have to trade somebody of equal value.
Right. They'd have to make a move. That whether or not I just feel like he's a better fit in Montreal than he is Toronto. So if you're gonna go out there and make the trade for cap space and do something.
I don't know about that, Ack, because one thing Taylor Hall can't do is play center, and right now that's the big weakness for Montreal. The reason that they've slumped because Suzuki, Kotkaniemi, and Deno are not doing the same thing that they did last year.
They did slump, Mike. I think it's worthy of saying for the people that were jumping ship with Carey Price and otherwise, his last 2 and 3 games, he's had like a .963 save percentage. Yeah. And there was a subtlety, and I don't know if it was Sean Burke or just him. I think it's probably him, where he was staying down a little too long. Somebody showed it on one of the networks yesterday, and instead he's staying more upright and he's making more saves, like against the pole, against the post, and otherwise. And you know what? It really could just be that much of a difference, where a little bit of his game slumped like that, and a little quick tune, it gets him back in it.
It's very possible. Now again, the cap is the issue here. But the Leafs are looking for a left winger to play with Tavares and Nylander. That Hall would fit with that. But I don't see a way other than trading a salary like Alex Kerfoot, who's making $3.5 million, and I don't think they really are anxious to trade Kerfoot because he's actually playing really well right now, that you could fit Hall. I think that if the Leafs are going after somebody, they're going after somebody who's making a lot less than $8 million. It's probably somebody who's making, that's why Granlund has been talked about, because he's making under 4. That's why Eric Stahl has been mentioned. He's making under 4. There's a couple other names like Nick Cousins and Lawson Krause, who've been I wrote about yesterday. They're limited in what they can do, but I do think that they want to add depth to their forwards.
Yeah, I don't know. There are some names. There seems like to me, I've never felt more hesitant on some of these names that you're mentioning, Mike, that I do this year going into the trade deadline. I know there's certain there's just some things that I'm really afraid of. If I'm a GM,
about who specifically?
I mean, all right, Granlund. Let's start there. Granlund's.
Well, I think Granlund is a bad fit for the Leafs, but the only thing everybody's putting two and two together. They tried to sign him in the offseason. He re-signed in Nashville. He's not having a particularly good year with the Preds. The last 3 or 4 years has not been good in the playoffs. He's not a big body. I don't think it's a good.
There are a lot of things that I would look at if I was Toronto.
I don't think it's
I would definitely say he's not good in the playoffs. That's not what you want.
Right, but the mention of him has cooled over the last few weeks. And I touched base with somebody in Nashville, and he said he hadn't heard anything about Granlund, but with David Poile there, you never hear anything about any trade until it happens.
Well, let's talk about this trade that Bill C. You have put up here.
One other thing, here's what Montreal could do.
Yep.
If Montreal were willing to give up Tatar to balance the trade, because he makes 4.8 and he's a UFA, then Sabres don't hold the salary. Someone like Kate Gooley and a pick, they probably could get Taylor Hall.
Yeah.
Right. But then again,
Kate Gooley's better than his brother. Don't start saying, I know they have.
No. What I was going to say is, again,
I didn't think you would. I'm not talking about you.
A team that is weak offensively, Montreal, you're trading a guy who's still producing for them offensively in Tatar.
The hope is more upside with Hall, though.
I agree, but I think they would probably rather not give up Tatar to get Hall. I think they would probably want to give up somebody else
Except he is a UFA, Mike. So you just trade. I mean,
right? But how much of a difference is Hall going to make than Tatar?
Well, he can make a big difference. I mean, in the right circumstances, he can make a much bigger difference.
And Davy Jones, no, Tatar is not better than Hall. Hall is better than Tatar. Jesus Christ.
No. I mean, Tatar is better than people think he is. He's not better than Hall. He's not better than Hall. But he's better than people give him credit for. I mean,
that is true.
At least in Montreal, he's been very good.
Now, okay, Bill C. Attaching Mark Stahl to the Bruins, which might make sense because they've lost Lawson and Carlo and I think Kevin Miller, so they need defensive help. But but Stahl's 5.7. You'd have to have Yzerman retain 50%. Is DeBrusque somebody that Detroit would be interested in?
I think so. I think Yzerman would like a faster.
Yeah. I think that's actually a good fit. DeBrusque is like your typical. He is like your guy that's going to go to an expansion team, which I consider Detroit basically. And once you give him ice time, he's going to be really good. I think
he's just not really fast. So it depends on what kind of team that Yzerman wants to build. You do need some goal scorers, and not everybody can be the fastest guy. He can be like Toffoli. I think there's a chance of that. Also, it did break when I was on Sirius about Darcy Kempner being out for 4 weeks or more.
Yeah, that's big.
That's pretty much going to preclude him from being traded now too.
It really is, and that changes a lot of things.
And Arizona. I mean, right now Arizona is in the thick of the race for the bottom 2 spots in the West. I mean, they're at 27. Minnesota's at 29. Colorado's at 28.
Big win by Minnesota last night. Huge.
I wanted to talk about that for a second, and I know it's not a rumor, but I think that that goaltender. Good Lord. Yeah, I mean,
but we don't know if we could ride him for a season. That's the problem.
Let's just talk about what he's done. First of all, 6 wins in a row.
Mm-hmm.
This is why you never could sit there. I don't understand that. We talked at length about telling Talbot that he's the starter when he gets there. It just makes no sense to me. But anyway,
I do.
They basically did at this point. So to me, I look at this kid, and he's won 6 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the most a rookie's ever won for the Minnesota Wild. He stops a 7-game win streak by the Vegas Golden Knights with a shutout last night. I mean, these are significant things that are like.
It was Vegas with Pietrangelo, right?
Yeah, without Stone and Pietrangelo.
So. Granted, but still they've been winning without those guys. So I mean, they have been winning a lot. So, gosh, what
the only thing you have to worry about, Deck, is last year was his first pro year here.
Right.
Worry, if all of a sudden you're playing him 2 out of every 3,
right?
What happens when you get to the playoffs and you're riding a young goalie? We haven't really had too many young goalies be very successful. I know people might point to Bennington, but he wasn't young.
Yeah, he wasn't young.
And I'm not sure if Kakkonen, I think he's 23 or 4.
Yeah, he's not super young either. He's played.
He's not super young, but he's inexperienced.
He's played a lot. He's been a lot of time in the AHL, hasn't he? So
not a lot. I think he was rookie here last year in the AHL, I think.
Okay. Yeah. So 1 year.
He's 24 years old, and he played 2 seasons with Iowa, 39 and 34.
Okay. Yeah. So it's not a ton of pro time.
Well, it just further goes to the fact that that we have I will always say, sorry, the dog will be outside in a second. I will firmly say that we have the best group of young goaltenders we've ever had in the NHL right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I really agree with that.
I don't think there's ever been a time when that's been, and I think that they agree. Yeah, they probably agree. I have to get going, guys. Unfortunately, at 2:00, I have to leave very soon. But
we'll finish up the show with a couple of questions.
Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. I will be back again tomorrow. I just have a family appointment right now. And thanks, guys. You guys should finish up. I won't end the broadcast. I just don't want to sit there. All right, cool. I'll leave. I'm back. See you guys later.
Thanks. See ya.
Okay. We'll finish off with a couple questions. Somebody is mentioning Connor Garland, and I Russ, I think with this news now, Kemper's out for, like they said, up to 4 weeks. I'm not saying that they're done.
Yeah,
but they're done. But they're done. I think Arizona's done. We thought Arizona was going to dump before the deadline because of money, pure and simple. Now, if Kemper is out and they have to go with Ranta and Aiden Hill, I don't think they're going to stay in the race. I think I think that LA is going to blow by them, and you have Minnesota and Colorado. So I think that you're going to see them, shed. Guys like Lawson Krause and Brassard and the defensemen go. I mean, here's where Philadelphia might go for a cheap defenseman if they don't want to make the investment of trading a first-round pick for Ekholm or something high for Savard. Maybe they go after Alex Goligoski or they go after Yarmulson.
Right. I would say this. The date I sort of came up with when I was on Sirius before was I think teams are going to give it till March 31st. And then at March 31st, since the 12th is the deadline, you get past the quarantine period, you'll get a guy just before the deadline anyhow. I think teams are going to look at their rosters, look at their record, and say, all right, at this point in time, where are we at? And I still think even the Coyotes will do that. You can't give up playoff revenue, Mike. They would actually.
There is no playoff revenue. The revenue is normally tickets, and there's no seats.
Well, we don't know. We don't know what tickets are going to be like when the playoffs start, especially in a place like Arizona. They might let them pack the place.
And this is the thing. Davy Jones says they could get a first-round pick and a prospect for Garland. This is a team that doesn't have any draft picks.
Right.
That is a motivating.
It's a motivating factor for sure.
Yeah, they may trade
Cashola, which they need.
Right. It's a question of how much. I don't know how much money they're going to make by making the playoffs. If
they're going to save money now, if for some reason Kempner turns out to be more than 4 weeks, they could put him on LTIR and save some money. We'll see, right?
Yeah. All right. I saw one more question, and we'll go here.
Good question, Mike. Don't put garbage up there.
Yeah. Well, Davies, like, does Antti Ranta have any trade value? Well, they're not going to trade him now that Kemper's hurt.
They're not trading him right now.
Yeah, no, it's over. That's over with. Let's see here. Okay, Rogers, would Toronto, if Toronto would trade for Nick Foligno, they might need to move Nylander. They're not moving Nylander during the season. That's
right.
The thing. Like as much as Roger, it seems like you want them to move Nylander, and I think it's going to be necessary for them to move Nylander.
I don't think Nick Foligno's moving in season either.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Foligno's the team captain in Columbus.
Right.
He's got a no move clause.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere this in season.
I think Foligno probably signs another deal and finishes his career in Columbus. He's been there ever since he got traded from Ottawa, so I don't see him moving on.
Yeah. Good.
The only way it happens is if the contract negotiations with Columbus have dried up and they're not even talking. And if that's the case, then he would waive his no move clause. But I think he's got a modified no trade too. So he would again, like Taylor Hall, he would control where he goes. So
yeah, he's going to control where he goes.
Yeah, and maybe he wants to win a Stanley Cup. Let's see here.
Is Toronto really the place to go? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Stop it. Hey, Cameron Young. Hey, Russ or Mike, since you guys are fans of NHL teams like the Rangers and the Leafs, is there a rule that since you guys are fans of other teams, can you still cover their games? I covered the Leaf games, and I'm right down the middle. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm down the middle. I stopped being a Ranger fan like in 2000.
Yeah, you can't. Okay, this is the thing. You can't cheer in the press box.
No, if you ask, are they my team when I grew up? Yes. Yeah. Have I written books about them? Yes.
Yes.
But yes, I cover plenty of games at MSG, and I cover everywhere. And no, it's not a problem.
Yeah, and I find it no less pleasurable to go and cover games in Toronto than to cover games in Buffalo. And Buffalo is not.
I've been covered in Philly straight for like 15 years now.
Right. Now, Thatcher Demko had another good game yesterday, Russ. That's 3 in a row. I think it was a 2-1 win over Montreal. So
he was on second star of the week.
Yeah, and hey, I mean, okay, they've played a lot more games than everybody else in the division, but they're only 3 points behind the Canadiens.
I did bring this up when I put out that article a week ago on Elite Prospects about Thatcher Demko that it was possible now that he is locked in that they could start making gains on the division. And I do think there's a chance they can make gains on that division.
Yeah.
Every time you're playing, this is the one year where truly, if you're 5 or 6 points out, you are not out of it because you don't have to play like 4 games to make up a bunch of points. You're going to make up instant points in some cases on the teams you're going to play. So this is a year where if you could hang around 4 to 6 points out, you're in it.
Yeah, the only team that's out of it in the North right now is Ottawa. I mean, Calgary's at 25 and second place is 32. So it's 7 points. And you're in a division with 4 point games.
Right.
Elizabeth, please do not insult me by calling me a Sabres fan. You insult my intelligence. Yes. On that note, we'll end the show. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For the departed Eklund, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.